Welcome to Mental Models Daily, where we explore one mental model each day to help you elevate your daily decision-making. Today we're diving into a fallacy that often derails debates and discussions, the tu quoque fallacy. The tu quoque fallacy, which is Latin for you also, is an attempt to discredit the opponent's argument by asserting that the opponent is guilty of the same behaviour they are criticising. It's rather like a child responding to an admonishment about not cleaning their room by saying, "Well, your office is messy too," as if one person's untidiness justifies another's. This fallacy is also known as the appeal to hypocrisy, and it's a favourite tactic in political debates, personal arguments, and even international diplomacy. It's the logical equivalent of trying to deflect a speeding ticket by pointing out that other cars were speeding too. While it might feel satisfying, it doesn't actually address the issue at hand. Let's consider an example. Imagine a debate about climate change where one person argues for reducing carbon emissions. Their opponent responds, "But you drove a car here today." This is a classic tu quoque. While it may highlight hypocrisy, it doesn't actually refute the argument about the need to reduce emissions. It's like dismissing a doctor's advice to quit smoking because the doctor once smoked. The advice remains valid regardless of the messenger's personal habits. In personal relationships, the tu quoque fallacy can be particularly destructive. One partner might criticise the other for not doing their share of housework, only to be met with, "Well, you never take out the rubbish." This tit-for-tat approach rarely solves problems and often escalates conflicts. It's akin to trying to fix a leaky roof by pointing out that the basement also floods. You're still going to get wet. In public discourse, tu quoque arguments often serve to muddy the waters rather than clarify issues. A politician accused of unethical behaviour might retort, "But what about the scandals in the opposition party?" This is rather like a student justifying their cheating by pointing out that others in the class also cheated. It may be true, but it doesn't make the action any more acceptable. Even in academic or scientific debates, the tu quoque can rear its head. A researcher critiquing a study's methodology might be countered with, "But your own studies have had similar flaws." While this might be an interesting point for a separate discussion, it doesn't address the validity of the critique at hand. It's like dismissing a fire alarm because the person who pulled it once burned toast. The potential fire still needs addressing. So how can we avoid falling into the tu quoque trap? Firstly, when faced with criticism, resist the urge to immediately point out the flaws of your critic. Instead, consider the merits of the criticism itself. It's like receiving feedback on a painting. The quality of the feedback doesn't depend on whether the critic can paint better than you. Secondly, in debates or arguments, stay focused on the issue at hand. If someone employs a tu quoque against you, gently guide the conversation back to the original point. It's like being a conversational shepherd, keeping the flock of ideas from straying too far afield. Lastly, remember that it's possible for someone to be hypocritical and still be correct. Truth and consistency are separate issues. A smoker telling you that smoking is bad for your health is still giving you accurate information, even if they're not following their own advice. In conclusion, recognizing the tu quoque fallacy can help us engage in more productive discussions and debates. It reminds us to address arguments on their merits, rather than attacking the character or behaviour of those making them. After all, in the pursuit of truth and understanding, it's the ideas that matter, not the imperfections of those expressing them. Thank you for joining me today on Mental Models Daily. I hope this exploration of the tu quoque fallacy hasn't left you tempted to point out any inconsistencies in my own reasoning. Until next time, may your arguments be logical and your fallacies few. For more mental models, please visit mentalmodelsdaily.com or find us on X or Instagram. Our podcast music was provided by thepodcasthost.com and Alitu, the podcast maker. Find your own free podcast music over at thepodcasthost.com.